Standing with me is Phillip Dwyer, a citizen journalist who was arrested last night in Coolock, spent a little bit of time in the clink before he was let out. He's now under order not to re-attend the place in Coolock, so we thought we would go somewhere a little bit fancier. There's some beautiful parts in Ireland, and I think your purpose for taking us here to the Malahide Marina was to make a point that they're not putting 500-person migrant camps in the luxury, high-income places of Ireland. They're putting it in the low-income, low political clout areas like Coolock. Is that right?
That's right, Ezra, and thank you for letting me use your platform here to get the message out of what's going on in Ireland. And yeah, absolutely is the point that this is a very affluent part of North County Dublin, right on the coastline here. You have apartment blocks around it here, very high-end, expensive apartments. The whole area has boutique shops, it has excellent restaurants, and a close-knit community that would be very conscious of not allowing their community to be invaded by what's happening in places like Coolock and many other parts of Ireland and Dublin, but it always tends to be the working-class areas. And it's been, it's really got out of control now, Ezra, and as people can see around the world, we think it's really important to get the message out around the world that Ireland is really being devastated now by this influx of mainly military-age men at this stage. No matter what the people seem to say or the community seem to say, the government they seem to laugh in your faces. Now we saw yesterday with the public order units going in, heavy-handed. You had a couple of children, as I could see, 10 to 15. I was live streaming it yesterday. I had 17,000 people in my live stream. All could see for themselves. It was a couple of kids, maybe 10 to 15 kids throwing stones stupidly. My channel, I never endorse any kind of criminal behaviour. But they seem to, the Garda riot squad came in and they seemed to take it out on the peaceful protesters that were there.
So you're saying there was let's say a dozen teenagers. So they were generally young. You're saying that the ones who were throwing rocks, but the Garda used the pepper spray on the non-violent protesters. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, and it was like a random thing. Even the guys I met in the prison cells yesterday, while we were waiting to be heard by a judge, a lot of them said they were just standing there peacefully and they were randomly assaulted and attacked by Gardaí. I saw serious wounds, and one young lad, an 18-year-old young lad, had his shin open up, 2 wounds on his shin, which is a really nasty place to get a deep cut. Other guys had head wounds and body marks from battens on their bodies. So, and they were definitely randomly picked. A lot of them. Now, I'm sure maybe 1 or 2 might have been doing something silly. I'm not sure, but out of the 15, and a lot of these guys were kind of fathers and grown-ups. They weren't there to be, damaging property or wrecking the place or doing anything illegal,
when we landed in Dublin, we saw all the front pages, but there was one that was very gripping. You had mums and dads and people of different ages standing peacefully, and then there was one guy wearing a balaclava throwing a brick. And I got to tell you, someone who wears a balaclava throwing a brick, that is a little bit terrifying. But the interesting thing about that photo is everyone else around him was showing their face. No one was throwing a brick. What would you say the numbers were? You said it might be a dozen or more. I think 15 people were arrested. How many people were peacefully protesting who were not arrested?
Well, on my side of the property that's being used for this invasion, let's call it, there was a group of people, I'd say maybe 200 to 300 people who were just standing around peacefully, wanted to protest what was going on. Then you had on the other side where that was sealed off, you couldn't get from one side to the other. Both sides of the road were sealed off by the police. I didn't see how many were there, but I'm sure I think there was hundreds there as well. But it was definitely, when I arrived, and you can see it on my live stream, I'm on X, you can see it there that these were young children, some of them 12, 13 years of age, that were throwing stones, stupidly throwing stones. But it was like, I felt the tension. I said it during my live stream. I could feel the tension. I've been there before. I've seen it in Newtown, Mount Kennedy. I've seen it during the Dublin riots. You could feel that something bad was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, police vans came around and they came out kind of behind us. So, in other words, we were kind of nearly trapped. You didn't know where to go. When I got arrested by the way, this individual, he's a police inspector. He's the same guy that beat me very badly, physically assaulted me the night of the Dublin riots. I was hospitalised with bad leg injuries. The same inspector arrested me yesterday because I was filming.
What were you charged with? I was going to ask. Obviously, you were not throwing a rock. Am I right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, and you were not masked.
No, I was trying to cover the news. I mean, this.
So tell me what. I mean, I didn't see your live stream yet. I'm going to look it up, obviously, as soon as we're done here. But, like, how were you dressed? What were you holding? Did you engage with police? Why would they arrest you?
Because what I do on my channel is I criticise government policy. I expose.
And were you touching any cops? Were you pushing any cops?
No. I asked this, and it turns out it was the inspector. He came out of a McDonald's where they were after been chasing out some young kids, and I asked him, could he tell us what's going on? And with that, he started to warn me about my name and address. He wanted my name and address. He said he wanted me to leave the area, and I didn't.
And on what basis? On what basis did he say that?
Public order. It's a public order charge. They're calling it. But so I have two charges. He arrested me there, and I was trying to walk away. He wouldn't even allow me to walk away.
So all you did was film. He knew you from an earlier incident. He told you to get out, and then he arrested you. Is that what happened?
That's it. Yeah.
Were there others amongst the 15 people who were arrested who were in a similar boat as you?
Any one of them that I've met were actually badly beaten up.
Were you beaten?
No, I didn't. I wasn't physically assaulted.
Well, thank goodness for that.
No, thank God. But
and you have you were telling me in the car over you have a lawyer. What in the end were you charged with? You were charged with obstruction or not, or is it some sort of antisocial act?
Failing to leave the area, public order, failing to leave the area after being instructed, and refusing to give my name and address.
But they knew who you were anyway.
They knew exactly who I was.
Did he call you by name?
Yeah, and they had my name on the sheet when I went into the police station. But this man definitely knows. He is also allegedly, a diversity officer within his station, which is in inner city Dublin, which we now have. And in the Irish police force now, Ezra, we have something like 450 diversity officers in the country to check out people, who say mean words online, who disagree with government policy, who disagree with transgender ideology. This is what we have now in Ireland. I mean, we're probably now one of the wokest countries in the world.
I find that so unusual. I mean, I don't know a lot about Ireland. This is only my second time here. I know a little bit about Irish writers and Irish poets, and of course we have a lot of Irish descendants in Canada, especially in Newfoundland. And when I don't want to caricature or stereotype, but I would say that the Irish are politically incorrect. They use the odd cuss word. They're blunt, and there's sort of a fighting spirit. I'd say rebellious. Obviously, that's just not everyone meets that. But when you tell me that Ireland has gone from, a vigorous, boisterous place to a woke, obedient place, that's such a shock to me.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back maybe 25, 30 years back in Ireland here. We suddenly became a wealthy country very quickly. We came from a very poor country with high unemployment, a lot of emigration, which is one of the biggest curses this country has ever suffered over its history. And suddenly we got this international investment. We reduced corporation tax to 12.5%. The financial centres were set up. Google and the technology companies came in, Intel, and suddenly there was an influx of money. And it was really kind of fake money. There was cheap interest rates in European Union as well. And we kind of borrowed. We all thought we were millionaires, but it actually changed us as we all became a bit soulless, let's call it. We lost track of what is important in life, in my opinion. And, this thing of knowing your neighbours, everybody, communities knew each other. That kind of thing disintegrated over the years, the last 20, 25 years in Ireland. And no, I'm not saying it's everywhere, but it is definitely a factor. And now what we have now is that people are being influenced by the media, which has been completely overtaken in Ireland, overrun with this woke ideology.
Well, that's what's interesting to me is I'm sure what happened yesterday was news, no matter what. But it was like an identical message track on every single newspaper front page. And we just hopped in the cab, and we weren't even listening to a a news station. We were listening to a music station, and during the break, the DJ felt compelled to reiterate it was like it was an official message track, but what was so interesting is we had this total uniform narrative. But then we hop out of the car and we stand at Kulak where the protest and riot, if you want to call it that, were, and massive numbers of people are honking their horns in support. So you've got the official legacy media, the official establishment over here, but if that honking was any guide, a ton of Irish do not support mass immigration.
Oh, absolutely. And then the recent opinion polls there, I mean, you can check them out. The Red Sea polls, like, were credible polls. You're talking 80% of the people of Ireland aren't happy about the immigration policies in Ireland now. And they're saying we've had too much of it. It needs to be controlled. But as I said, I mean, it's something that people seem to be afraid to speak out in this country because there's no opposition to what the government are trying to impose.
And why is that? Like, I look around. In the UK, you have Nigel Farage talking about this. In France, you have Marine Le Pen. In Germany, you have Alternative for Deutschland. In Italy, you have Giorgia Meloni. Even in the United States, I mean, Donald Trump. In Canada, Pierre Poilievre slowly talking about it. I look around the world, people are starting to, the pendulum is swinging back. But what about Ireland?
Yeah, unfortunately, politically, though, we're a bit well behind those countries you just mentioned there. Then we do have a couple of nationalist parties that are proper nationalist party that believe in the Irish, the country of Ireland, the nation of Ireland belongs to the Irish people, and no apologies. And I mean, that gets you called a racist and labelled as a racist.
But see, the thing is, and again, I don't know a lot about Ireland, but everyone in Canada's heard of Sinn Féin, and the Irish nationalism, Irish Republicans. So when I learned that Sinn Féin, the official nationalist party, was for mass immigration and was calling anyone against it a British intelligence asset, and it took me a while to decode that. Like, that's just where I come from, that doesn't even make sense. Here in Ireland, I guess that's the ultimate accusation of disloyalty. It seems upside down to me that Sinn Féin is for open borders. I thought they were the ones who said Ireland for the Irish.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what they tried probably fool their members, their voters, their diaspora, the people in Canada and America. Probably a lot of them still believe that, but unfortunately Sinn Féin have done a complete U-turn on nationalism.
I find that so weird.
Yeah. They are the most woke party nearly out there now.
I don't get it.
Fake opposition. They didn't get the vote they were hoping to get the last. They have made grounds and gains with the electorate over the last couple of years, but this time around, in local elections, they didn't do as well. People are getting to figure out that they have turned the corner and they're against nationalism now. There's no way, and I'm glad you brought up Sinn Féin, Ezra, because anybody out there, maybe in Canada or the US, who are donating to Sinn Féin, please stop. If you're going to donate an Irish cause, donate to the Irish nationalist parties like Ireland First, the National Party, the Irish People Party. These parties are genuine Irish parties that are concerned for the Irish people and their interests.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it. See, in Canada, we don't have a history of slavery. In fact, we were the place where runaway slaves from America would come on something called the Underground Railroad. But there were native indigenous people, and some of them were put in residential schools. The reason I'm telling you this is that the self-hating Canadians, they have something to point to. They say, look, you put Indians or indigenous people in residential schools and you were mean to them. And in the States, they have the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. And you go around the world, the Brits have colonialism, so you have all these reasons to be guilty. But Ireland, you are the indigenous people. You are the First Nation in Ireland. You didn't colonize anyone. You didn't enslave anyone. You did no wrong to anyone. In fact, I think a lot of people would say the Irish were wronged against. And so this is what I do not understand. I can understand a self-hating American. I can understand a self-hating Canadian, a self-hating Brit. I disagree with all that, but I can understand it. Why would an Irishman loathe his own country? Why would an Irishman try and deracinate Ireland and change it from being Irish? And I see this, I'm trying to follow Irish news, and I see censorship rules and woke rules and fighting anti-white racism and white privilege. Like, I see all this stuff, and I say, why are you importing this American idea or these Like, it just doesn't fit here. I don't get why Ireland can't be Irish.
I mean, you could probably put it down to being a result of what happens to a population when mainstream media are given a free rein.
It's got to be more than just mainstream media. Come on.
It is.
It's got to be the schools. It's got to be the NGOs.
Don't get me started. I mean, it's universities, it's colleges, it's politicians, it's kind of every facet of society now is infected with this woke virus in Ireland. And it didn't take long. But I mean, the problem is we just don't have an opposition to it as yet. We are working on, we are making great strides in Ireland, but the recent election has shown us that we haven't made the strides we quite thought we had made. So, but we're still at it. We're still out in here talking to people like you, hoping that you'll put this message around the world so people from outside of Ireland and the diaspora in Ireland can come and help us. Ireland, as I said before in an interview, Ireland is on life support now. We are nearly at a stage where we will be gone forever. Our population will be gone forever. And these self-loathing people, it just goes, the power, and it looks like the power of being on the gravy train. If you don't go along with the woke ideology, if you speak out against LGBT nonsense, or if you speak out against immigration, you're in danger in this country of losing your job and your livelihood. And that's a terrifying prospect for a lot of people.
We're only here for a short period of time because we got to get back to Canada. There's a lot of stuff cooking there. But tomorrow we're hoping to go down to Tipperary County, about 2 hours from here. I heard there's a town so small it's a village. It's actually really just based around this one country house, Dundrum, where there's 175 Irish in the village, 175. And the government, without consultation, without permission, without consent, without warning, wants to put 280 foreign migrants in a village of 175, immediately rendering the Irish a minority, immediately and perhaps irrevocably altering the history of that town. I find that such a staggering thing. I can't understand that. Well, I mean, there's bad immigration rules in a lot of countries, but to destroy a village, I don't get it. I wish I could understand the rationale.
Yeah, and look, as I've been outside these DPs, direct provision centres that they plant in these communities, and
that's what they call them, direct
provision centres. Yeah, and they plant these hordes of men, mainly military-age men. And I've tried my best to go around, and I've asked them plenty of interviews and questions about how they got here and everything else, and I've yet to find anyone I could perceive to be a genuine refugee. Now, plus that, a number of these places I've been to, and I've actually gone to the nearest piece of shrubbery or bush or whatever that has cover, and you'd walk in there, and the first place they go to is these bushes to shoot up drugs and whatever, smoke crack cocaine, you name it, little drug dens. And I've seen them. You can check out my Twitter. I've done it in the past. Last summer, we found a place in City West and other places. So they're not bringing in the best. They're not bringing in, I'm not saying all these migrants are criminals, but, well, anybody who comes into a country illegally is a criminal in my view, and that's the law says that itself. It's not just me. But yeah, they are definitely not bringing in engineers, doctors, or whatever, you know.
Well, it's just astonishing. I think it's outrageous that you were arrested. In the car ride over, you tell me you have a lawyer that you think can help you out, and I'm glad to hear it. I don't know. This is a very strange place. I wish I had come to Ireland 20 years ago. I wish I had experienced that Ireland, because the Ireland I see now is so hard to understand. By the way, it's beautiful. Like, it just looks beautiful. Like, this is unbelievably beautiful, and I can see why so much literature and poetry emanated, and songs. I mean, whether it's U2 or the Cranberries, or, you know, there's so much music that comes from this place. So much of it is so soulful. I was a super fan of Sinead O'Connor growing up. That Ireland, there's still some of it left. Don't get me wrong, but my God, they're trying to drive it out.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to go into the city centre now. You're going to be staying there. I wouldn't go out late at night. Walk down the streets, the main street, O'Connell Street, iconic street with the GPO where the 1916 rising happened, and you'll be doing well to find an Irish person. You're talking about up to 80% of the population in that area is non-Irish, African, Middle Eastern, Albanian drug gangs, Roma, gypsies, you name it. Like, there's all these different mishmash of people and antisocial behaviour to beat the band. And it's nearly getting to a point where we're going to be having these no-go zones. Irish police won't go into these areas, and they won't report on migrant crime the same way as they report on Irish crime. When I came out of the courts yesterday, there was 3 mainstream media companies outside, only delighted to film you coming out of court to try and portray you as something. I asked them, not any of them want to interview me. The 3 companies, not one of them would interview me. They want to film you coming out, and they want to put a narrative on why you're in that court and destroy Irish people. And then the Irish people, as we mentioned earlier in Dundrum, if you disagree with what they're doing to your area, they will come over here and they will smash you in the head, and they will take you out and take you down. This government that we're living with now here in Ireland.
Phillip Dwyer, thanks for talking with us. Absolutely terrifying. We'll keep an eye on your social media feed, and hopefully you will be exonerated from these charges. It sounded like they just wanted to sweep you off the streets because you were shining a light of scrutiny. If you had as many viewers as you mentioned, I think that's why you were arrested. So stay safe, keep up the fight, and we'll keep an eye on what you're up to.
Thanks a million, Ezra. Thanks for speaking to me.
My pleasure.